The morning began the way thousands of mornings do at a major American zoo. Bright, loud, and comfortably predictable. Weekend crowds spilled through the gates of the San Diego Zoo parents, balancing coffee cups and strollers. Children tugging impatiently at sleeves pointing toward signs with cartoon animals printed in bold colors. Cameras clicked. Laughter bounced off concrete walkways. The air smelled faintly of popcorn and sunscreen. Nothing about the day suggested it would become unforgettable. Near the gorilla enclosure, visitors pressed closer to the glass, watching the troop move with their usual quiet authority. The massive female at the center of the habitat, known to staff as Maya, sat beneath the shade of a rock ledge, her back broad, her posture relaxed but alert. She was a presence people felt before they understood it. Over 400 pounds of muscle restraint and intelligence. Children whispered when they saw her. Adults lowered their voices without realizing why. Then the sound came. At first it didn't register as danger, just a sharp yelp, thin and high-pitched cutting through the layered noise of the crowd. A few heads turned. Someone laughed nervously, assuming it was a child. Then the yelp came again closer, this time followed by a ripple of startled movement along the railing. A woman gasped. A man stepped backward so abruptly he nearly collided with a stroller. And then people saw it. Something small and brown darted through the open service gate at the edge of the enclosure, slipping past the barrier in a blur of fur and panic. A puppy, no bigger than a loaf of bread. Matted coat, floppy ears, ribs visible beneath its skin. It skidded across the grass inside the habitat, nails scrabbling uselessly against the earth tail, wagging in frantic, confused bursts, as if it still believed this was a game. For a split second, no one spoke. Then the silence shattered into alarm. Parents pulled children back. Hands flew to mouths. A chorus of overlapping voices filled the air. How did that get in? Whose dog is that? Oh my God. Several people raised phones, then hesitated, unsure whether this was something they were about to witness or something they would regret watching. From the far end of the enclosure, movement stirred. Maya rose. She did not rush. She did not charge. She stood slowly, unfolding her full height, her shoulders rolling forward as she stepped out of the shade. The ground seemed to shift beneath her weight. Her eyes locked onto the small, trembling animal frozen in the center of the grass. The puppy barked again, a single sharp sound that echoed too loudly in the suddenly quiet space. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Everyone expected the same thing. A lunge, a swat, a violent end so fast it would be impossible to look away. This was what strength did to weakness. This was how these stories usually ended. But Maya didn't do what anyone expected. She lowered herself instead. Slowly, deliberately, her massive hands spread wide as she crouched, fingers pressing into the grass. A low rumble vibrated deep in her chest, not a roar, not a warning, but something softer, almost rhythmic. The sound carried through the enclosure like a distant drumbeat. The puppy tilted its head. One cautious step forward, then another. The crowd leaned in as if pulled by a single invisible thread. No one breathed. Even the children were still now, eyes wide, senses sharp with a feeling they couldn't name. Without warning, Maya closed the distance. A collective cry rose, half scream, half prayer, but it died in people's throats as they saw what happened next. She didn't strike. She scooped. Her hands, thick enough to snap a branch in half, lifted the puppy from the ground with impossible gentleness. The small body squirmed for a heartbeat, then stilled as she pressed it against her chest. Maya curled her arms inward, cradling the animal the way mothers cradle infants, her fingers stroking its back in slow, careful motions. The world stopped. The puppy licked her chin. A stunned silence spread through the crowd, heavier than any scream could have been. Phones hovered uselessly in midair. A man near the railing whispered, "Is this real?" as if the scene might dissolve if he said it too loudly. Maya sat down in the grass, cross-legged the puppy, tucked securely in her lap. She rocked slightly, eyes half closed, shutting out the chaos beyond the glass. The little dog's tail wagged once, then again, hesitating, testing the moment. It nosed into the thick fur of her chest, seeking warmth. From somewhere behind the crowd, a radio crackled. Urgent voices. The sound of hurried footsteps. Zoo staff were moving now, their training colliding with disbelief. But Maya didn't turn toward them. She stayed exactly where she was, her attention fixed on the small life curled against her. For those watching, the confusion was almost painful. This was not how the rules worked. This was not what predators did. Every assumption people carried about power and instinct strained under the weight of what they were seeing. What no one in the crowd knew yet, what would not be spoken aloud for several long minutes, was that Maya had been a mother. And that 3 weeks earlier, she had lost her baby. That truth hovered invisibly over the enclosure, unspoken, but shaping everything that followed. The way she held the puppy, the way her body curved around it like a shield, the way her eyes sharpened whenever someone moved too quickly at the edge of her world. A normal day had ended the moment that service gate opened. What replaced it was something far more fragile, far more dangerous, and far more human than anyone was prepared for. And as the keepers finally reached the enclosure and saw what Maya was holding, one thought passed through every mind watching from behind the glass. Nothing about this would be simple anymore. What happened after the first shock was not relief, but confusion. Deep, disorienting confusion that spread through the crowd like a second wave. People had braced themselves for violence and instead found themselves staring at tenderness. The mind struggled to catch up with the eyes. A gorilla was not supposed to hold a puppy this way. Not here. Not ever. Maya remained seated in the center of the enclosure, the small dog tucked against her chest as if it had always belonged there. Her massive frame formed a quiet wall around the fragile body she protected. Every so often, she adjusted her grip, not tightening, never squeezing, just rebalancing the way a mother shifts a sleeping child to keep them comfortable. Her fingers traced slow, repetitive paths along the puppy's spine. Each movement was deliberate, measured, almost ceremonial. The puppy, for its part, had stopped trembling. Its breathing steadied. It rested its chin against Maya's arm, eyes half-lidded, tail giving the occasional uncertain wag. Whatever panic had driven it into the enclosure had drained away, replaced by a fragile trust that made the moment feel even more unreal. Along the railing, people whispered questions they didn't expect to be asking. Is she confused? Is this some kind of training behavior? Is it safe? No one had answers. Even those who had spent their lives around animals felt the ground shifting beneath what they thought they understood. This was not a trick. This was not a performance. There were no cues, no rewards, no conditioning at play. Maya was making a choice, and it was a choice no one had prepared for. Zoo staff clustered at the edge of the habitat, radios pressed close to their chests, voices low. Protocols raced through their minds, colliding with instinct. Normally, an animal holding another creature this small would signal possession, dominance, control, a situation that could turn lethal in a heartbeat. But nothing about Maya's posture spoke of ownership. She was not looming. She was not guarding food. She was not scanning for challengers. Her shoulders were rounded inward, protective rather than imposing. Her head dipped whenever the puppy shifted, her eyes tracking its movements with a focus that was neither predatory nor curious, but attentive, like listening. The crowd felt it before anyone articulated it. The fear that had tightened chests minutes earlier began to loosen, replaced by something more unsettling: empathy. People leaned closer, not out of morbid fascination now, but out of a need to understand what they were witnessing. Some lowered their phones. Others wiped their eyes without quite knowing why. Maya lifted her head slightly as a sudden noise rippled through the spectators. Her gaze swept the perimeter, sharp and alert. The puppy stirred, letting out a soft whine. Instantly, Maya pulled it closer, one arm tightening just enough to steady it. A low rumble rose from her chest, deeper this time, resonant warning. The message was unmistakable. Do not come closer. A younger gorilla wandered too near, curiosity drawing him forward. Maya turned her head and released a short, sharp grunt. He froze, then retreated without protest. The interaction lasted less than a second, but it sent a ripple through the watching staff. She was not confused. She was aware. She was in control, and she was defending something she believed was hers. That realization shifted the air again. Surprise gave way to unease, not fear of violence, but fear of consequence. A mother defending her young, even an imagined one, could be unpredictable. The longer this continued, the harder it would be to end without causing harm. Yet rushing her was unthinkable. Maya rocked gently, the motion slow and hypnotic. The puppy's ears flicked. It adjusted in her lap, nestling closer, as if responding to a rhythm older than either of them. Watching it, the crowd began to see something else. Not just an animal holding another animal, but grief finding shape. A man near the railing murmured, "She looks like she's remembering something." The words landed with quiet force. Maya's eyes drifted closed for a moment, then opened again, unfocused inward. Her breathing deepened. The world beyond the glass seemed to fall away as she settled into the small, fragile weight against her chest. This was not about the puppy alone. It was about what the puppy represented. A need unmet, a bond broken too soon. The staff exchanged looks heavy with understanding. Someone whispered Maya's history, and the truth moved through the group like a shadow. She had lost her infant weeks ago, small, weak, gone before it had truly begun. She had held the body long after life had left it rocking, refusing to let the keepers take it away. When they finally did, she had withdrawn into herself, eating less, avoiding the others. Her energy dimmed. Now something small and helpless had appeared in her world again, and she was not ready to lose it. The crowd felt the shift even without hearing the explanation. What they saw in Maya's face, softened eyes, careful movements, fierce vigilance, was heartbreak made visible. The confusion that followed was not about danger anymore. It was about morality. What do you do when love creates risk? What do you take away and what do you leave? Maya adjusted her grip again as the puppy squirmed, placing one broad hand over its back, shielding it from the noise. She angled her body slightly, positioning herself between the puppy and the gathering keepers. It was subtle but unmistakable. She knew they were watching. She knew they wanted what she held, and she was not ready to let go. For the first time since the incident began, fear returned, but it had changed shape. This was no longer the fear of a sudden attack. It was the fear of breaking something delicate and unseen, of stepping into a moment that demanded patience rather than force. Somewhere in the crowd, a child asked quietly, "Is she its mom?" No one answered. Maya rose to her feet without warning, the puppy cradled securely against her chest. Gasps rippled outward as people instinctively stepped back. She scanned the enclosure again, then turned toward the climbing structure at the far end. Her intent was clear before anyone found words for it. She was moving away, protecting. The emotional tide shifted once more, surprise folding into understanding into a dawning respect that felt almost painful. The gorilla who had been feared as a potential predator had refused the role entirely. She had chosen something else, something harder to control, something that demanded a different response from everyone watching. As Maya took her first deliberate steps toward the towering beams ahead, one truth settled over the enclosure with quiet certainty. This was no longer about stopping an animal. It was about meeting a mother where she was and figuring out how to bring her back without tearing her apart. Harris felt it before he named it. Long before the radios crackled with instructions, before anyone argued about tranquilizers or barriers, before the crowd's fear reshaped itself in awe, he felt the quiet pressure in his chest that told him this moment did not belong to chance. He had worked at the San Diego Zoo for more than 20 years. He had learned to read gorillas the way sailors read weather, by watching what others dismissed as stillness. A shift of weight, a breath held too long, a look that lingered when it should have moved on. Patterns mattered, and what Maya was doing now shattered every shallow explanation being whispered around him. "She's not confused," Harris said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. The junior keeper beside him glanced over, eyes wide. "Then what is this?" Harris didn't answer right away. He watched Maya instead. She had reached the base of the climbing structure, now the puppy still pressed to her chest. Her movements were careful, almost reverent. She tested the first beam before lifting herself, adjusting her grip so the small body never shifted too far from her center. This wasn't instinct in the raw sense. This was intention layered with memory. Harris swallowed. He remembered the night 3 weeks earlier when everything had changed. Maya's infant had been born underweight. The veterinary team had warned them gently, honestly. Sometimes nature made decisions humans couldn't undo. Harris had stood by the enclosure through the early hours of that morning, watching Maya cradle the tiny form, grooming it with infinite patience. When the infant stopped breathing, she hadn't cried out. She had gone still. So still it frightened everyone. For days after she refused to release the body, she carried it everywhere, rocked it, slept with it tucked against her chest. When the keepers finally intervened for health reasons, for the safety of the troop, Maya had not fought. She had done something far worse. She had retreated. She stopped meeting their eyes, stopped eating properly, stopped engaging with the others. Grief did not make her violent, it made her absent. Now Harris watched that absence fill itself with something else. "This isn't possession," he said louder now as a few nearby staff leaned closer. "She's not claiming territory. She's not threatening us." "What is she doing then?" someone asked. Harris exhaled slowly. "She's remembering." The words settled uneasily among them. Memory was an uncomfortable concept in their line of work. Behaviorists preferred cleaner terms: conditioning, association, response to stimulus. Memory implied continuity, implied experience that lingered beyond immediate reward or threat. It implied something dangerously close to grief. Maya paused halfway up the structure, adjusting the puppy again. The small animal whimpered softly, startled by the height. Instantly, Maya tightened her hold and lowered her head, pressing her chin briefly to its back. The movement was unmistakable. That was a comforting gesture. Harris felt his throat tighten. He had seen that exact motion once before, in the days after Maya lost her infant. He remembered the way she would lower her head and hum the sound barely audible, but felt through the ground. The same sound now vibrated faintly in the enclosure. "She thinks it's hers," a keeper whispered. "Yes," Harris said, "and more than that, she thinks she needs it." The difference mattered. If this were aggression, protocol was clear. If this were confusion, they could redirect. But grief made everything slower, heavier, more dangerous to rush. A grieving mother didn't calculate risk the way others did. She calculated loss. Harris stepped closer to the glass, raising one hand, not as a signal of command but of presence. Maya glanced down at him just briefly. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, and something passed between them that Harris had felt before, but never named. Recognition. Not familiarity exactly. Understanding. He had been there in the worst hours. He had spoken softly when others backed away. He had not tried to force her hands open when she refused to let go. Maya knew him, and that knowledge anchored her now even as she climbed higher. "We can't rush this," Harris said firmly. "If we try to take the puppy by force, she'll panic. And if she panics, she might drop it," someone finished, voice tight. "Yes," Harris said, "or she might fight." "Either way, the puppy loses." Silence followed, the kind that meant people were listening. Above them, Maya reached the platform and turned her back to the crowd. She curled around the puppy, forming a living barrier between it and the world. From below, Harris could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her muscles stayed coiled ready. "She's protecting it from us," he said softly, "because the last time she trusted us, she lost her baby." No one argued that. A younger keeper shifted nervously. "So what do we do?" Harris closed his eyes for a moment and searched his memory, not for rules but for moments. For the nights he had sat outside the enclosure after hours. For the small details he had learned by staying when there was nothing left to do. Then it came to him, the blanket, he murmured. "What, the green blanket?" Harris said, already moving. "The one she used to wrap her infant." He didn't wait for permission. He turned and ran. As his boots pounded down the concrete corridor toward storage, his heart raced, not from fear, but from the weight of the decision. This was not in any manual. This was not a guarantee. But it was the only thing that felt honest. He found the blanket folded neatly in a bin, cleaned, but still faintly carrying a scent no detergent could erase. He gathered it up and hurried back. When Harris returned to the enclosure, the crowd had gone almost completely silent. Maya remained perched above, rocking gently, her massive form shielding the puppy. Harris stepped forward slowly, holding the blanket out where she could see it. "Maya," he called, his voice low, steady. "Look." She didn't move at first. Harris lifted the blanket slightly, letting it catch the breeze. He didn't wave it. He didn't shake it. He simply let it exist. "You remember this," he said softly. "You're safe." Maya's nostrils flared. Her head tilted. She glanced down at the puppy, then back at the blanket. For a long, suspended moment, she stayed frozen between two truths, the one she had lost and the one she was trying desperately to protect. Behind Harris, no one spoke. No one breathed too loudly. This was no longer about crowd control or spectacle. It was about trust. And as Harris held the blanket steady, meeting Maya where her memory lived, he understood something that would stay with him long after the day was over. This moment was never random. It was the past asking to be acknowledged before the present shattered under its weight. The most dangerous moment did not arrive with a roar. It arrived quietly, wrapped in tenderness, carried upward in careful arms. Maya stayed on the platform longer than anyone expected. The puppy was pressed tight against her chest, its small body rising and falling with shallow, uneven breaths. She had positioned herself with her back to the crowd, as if turning away could erase the world beyond the enclosure. From below, she looked impossibly still, an island of muscle and fur suspended above a sea of fear. Harris felt the weight of every second. Time stretched elastic and cruel. Around him, radios whispered fragments of contingency plans. A tranquilizer rifle weighted heavy with consequences no one wanted to own. Every option had a cost. Every movement carried risk. The truth that settled into Harris's bones was this: anger would have been easier. Anger had rules. Anger escalated in predictable ways. Anger could be met with distance, with barriers, with force if necessary. But what he was watching now was not fury, it was devotion. And devotion, when cornered, could be far more dangerous. Maya shifted her grip, testing the puppy's weight. The animal whimpered, a thin, fragile sound that slipped through the enclosure and lodged in the crowd's chest. Maya responded instantly, lowering her head, humming again. The vibration traveled through the beams, through the air, through Harris's feet. She was soothing it. She was promising safety. From the ground, the height felt unforgiving. Nearly 30 feet. A misstep, a startled reflex, a sudden noise. Any of it could turn gravity into a verdict. Harris imagined the worst without allowing himself to linger there. He had learned over decades to hold fear without letting it steer. "Don't move," he said softly to the staff nearest him, not as an order, but as a plea. Let her feel the quiet. The crowd, sensing the gravity, complied without instruction. Even the children were silent now, eyes fixed upward. The spectacle had drained away, replaced by something reverent and fragile. People were no longer watching for excitement. They were watching for mercy. Maya rose from her crouch and turned slightly, angling herself toward the ladder of beams that led down. Harris's heart stuttered. Movement was progress, but it was also peril. The puppy's claws scrabbled briefly, then settled as Maya tightened her hold just enough to steady it. She began her descent. Slow, measured, every step chosen. The beams creaked under her weight. The sound made a woman in the crowd flinch, hand flying to her mouth. Harris kept his eyes on Maya's hands. He tracked the puppy's position relative to her center of gravity. He measured risk, not in abstract terms, but in inches and breaths. Halfway down, Maya paused. She adjusted the puppy again, tucking it against her side. The animal yelped softly, startled. The sound cut through Harris like glass. He saw Maya's shoulders tense, saw the instinct flare, the reflex to climb back up, to retreat from perceived threat. This was the edge. The most dangerous moment was not the climb. It was this hesitation, this choice point where fear and love collided. Harris lifted the green blanket a fraction higher, keeping his voice steady. "You're okay," he said, as much to Maya as to himself. "You've got it. You're doing fine." Maya glanced down. Their eyes met again. In her gaze, Harris saw something that humbled him: calculation. Not the cold math of dominance, but the aching arithmetic of care. She was weighing outcomes she did not have words for. Risk to herself, risk to the small life she held, risk of letting go. He understood then why force would fail. Force would confirm her worst memory, that surrender meant loss, that trust ended in emptiness. She resumed her descent. 10 feet, then 5. When her feet touched the grass, a breath rippled through the crowd, collective and shaky. Relief surged too soon, and Harris knew better than to trust it. They were not finished. Not yet. Maya stood there, towering, the puppy still in her arms. She scanned the enclosure, eyes sharp, muscles coiled. She was grounded now, but not resolved. The danger had changed shape, not disappeared. Harris lowered himself into a crouch, making his body smaller. He extended the blanket toward her, stopping well short of her reach. He did not advance. He did not beckon. He let the memory do the work. Maya's gaze flicked from the blanket to Harris's face, then to the puppy, then back again. Behind Harris, a keeper eased a crate of fruit into the enclosure, rolling a mango slowly across the grass. The scent drifted upward. Maya noticed it, but did not move. Food was not the currency here. This was about meaning. Harris's pulse thudded in his ears. He knew the next seconds would decide everything. He shifted his weight slightly, careful not to spook her. "You remember," he murmured. "You're not alone." Maya took one step forward, then another. The puppy stirred, sensing movement, its body tensing. Maya's grip loosened just enough to adjust, just enough to create an opening. Harris moved. It was not a snatch, not a grab. It was a transfer. He slid his arms in, guided by muscle memory honed over years of careful handling. He supported the puppy's weight, cradled it against his chest, and drew back in one smooth motion. The puppy yelped once more, surprise than fear, then stilled as Harris held it close. The crowd erupted. Cheers, sobs, a wave of sound that crashed and receded too quickly. Harris barely registered it. His focus was locked on Maya. She did not charge. She did not roar. She sat down. The blanket was in her hands, now clutched tight against her chest. Her shoulders sagged, the tension draining from her posture in a way that was almost painful to watch. She rocked once, twice. Her eyes never left the spot where the puppy had been. Harris backed away slowly, heart pounding, the puppy trembling but alive in his arms. He did not turn his back on Maya. He did not rush. Respect demanded patience even now. As he reached the gate, he glanced back. Maya was still rocking, the green blanket folded carefully against her body. Her breathing was deep and slow. In her eyes, Harris saw it again. Not rage, not confusion, but the raw aftermath of love, released too late to save itself from hurt. This was the truth no one wanted to face. The greatest danger had never been Maya's strength. It had been her capacity to care. And as Harris stepped through the gate with the puppy safe against his chest, he knew that whatever came next for Maya, for the staff, for everyone who had witnessed this, would be shaped by a lesson far harder than fear. That love, when wounded, could be the sharpest edge of all. After she let go, the enclosure did not return to normal. Noise crept back in, slowly, uncertain of itself. Applause faded into murmurs. People exhaled shakily, as if realizing only now that they had been holding their breath for far too long. Harris carried the puppy through the service gate, its small body trembling but alive against his chest, while veterinary staff rushed forward to meet him. Yet the center of gravity in that moment was not the animal being saved. It was the one who remained behind. Maya stayed where she had sat down, the faded green blanket folded carefully in her arms. She did not chase. She did not protest. She did not rise again. Her massive frame, which had moments earlier felt charged with risk and motion, now seemed to settle into the earth itself. The strength that had frightened so many people moments before softened into stillness. She rocked once, twice, the same slow rhythm she had used when the puppy had been there. When the rocking stopped, she held the blanket closer, pressing it against her chest as if willing it to breathe. From behind the glass, people watched in silence. Some of them cried openly now. Others wiped their eyes and looked away, uncomfortable with the intimacy of what they were witnessing. This was not a triumphant ending. It was not the clean relief people expected when danger passed. It was grief stripped of spectacle, unfolding in real time. Harris paused just inside the gate before following the veterinary team down the corridor. He turned back for one last look at Maya. She lifted her head slightly, eyes following him, not with anger or accusation, but with something quieter. Recognition, perhaps even gratitude, or perhaps simply acknowledgement that something important had ended. The puppy was examined quickly. Aside from scrapes, dehydration, and a pounding heart, it was unharmed. When the veterinarian finally smiled and said the words, "He's going to be okay," relief hit Harris like a physical force. His knees weakened. He leaned against the wall, one hand pressed to his chest, grounding himself in the knowledge that at least one fragile life would go on. Outside, the crowd began to disperse. Phones buzzed as videos uploaded captions, already forming narratives that would travel far beyond the zoo's walls. But for those who had stayed until the end, the image that lingered was not the rescue. It was Maya alone in the grass, rocking an empty memory. Later that afternoon, when the enclosure had quieted again, Harris returned. He didn't approach the glass right away. He stood back, watching Maya from a respectful distance. She had moved only slightly since the rescue, repositioning herself beneath the shade of the same rock ledge where she had started the day. The blanket was still, with her folded, now tucked carefully beneath one arm. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, her size had not changed, but emotionally, as if a weight had settled into her posture. Her gaze drifted across the enclosure unfocused, then returned again and again to the spot near the gate where Harris had disappeared. She did not call out. She did not beat her chest. She simply waited, and in that waiting was the echo of everything she had already lost. Over the following days, the zoo returned to routine. Visitors came and went. Children laughed. The gorilla enclosure drew its usual crowd, many of them whispering as they pointed toward Maya, recognizing her from viral clips and headlines. "That's her," people said softly, as if speaking louder might disturb something sacred. Maya tolerated the attention without reacting to it. She moved more slowly now. She ate, but less eagerly than before. She rejoined the troop, grooming another female's infant, with gentle curiosity, then retreating again to her quiet corners. Grief did not disappear. It shifted. It learned to coexist with time. Harris watched these changes closely. He documented what he could, though his notes felt inadequate. There was no checkbox for what he was seeing, no metric for a mother relearning how to exist after being forced to let go twice, once by death, once by necessity. Weeks later, a decision was made quietly, without press conferences or announcements. A wildlife sanctuary had contacted the zoo about an orphan baby gorilla, a male too young to survive without constant care. The veterinary team assessed the risks. The behavioral specialist debated. Harris listened, weighing not just science, but memory. When the infant arrived wrapped in soft cloth and breathing in shallow, uncertain bursts, Harris carried him to the edge of Maya's enclosure. He did not enter immediately. He let her see first. Maya noticed the sound before the sight. Her head lifted, her posture changed. She stood slow and deliberate, eyes fixed on the small shape in Harris's arms. The infant made a faint noise, not a cry, just a breath shaped into sound. Maya froze. Then she approached. There was no rush this time, no desperate urgency. She reached out carefully, cupping the infant's head with one hand, her touch almost impossibly gentle. She drew him close, pressing her lips briefly to his fur, in a gesture so tender it made Harris's throat tighten. The infant clung to her, instinctively tiny fingers disappearing into her thick hair. Something in Maya's posture shifted, not erased, not healed entirely, but altered. The sharp edge of her grief softened just enough to allow something new to exist alongside it. In another part of the zoo, the puppy, now named Lucky, recovered quickly. He was adopted by a keeper's family, his days filled with warmth and safety. Occasionally, Harris brought him to the edge of the enclosure, holding him where Maya could see. She always noticed. She always came closer to the glass, her head tilting slightly, her eyes gentle. She did not reach for him again. She remembered. And that remembering, Harris realized, was its own kind of release. Nothing was the same after that day. Not for Maya, not for him, not for anyone who had witnessed the moment when love and danger had occupied the same fragile space. The lesson lingered long after the crowd moved on, quiet but insistent. Sometimes letting go does not mean forgetting. Sometimes it means choosing to live with the memory and allowing it to change you. Some stories do not end with celebration. They end with understanding, and that is why they stay with us. What unfolded between Maya and a small frightened puppy was never just an unusual incident at a zoo. It was a quiet confrontation with truths many of us prefer to avoid. That love does not always look safe, that grief does not announce itself loudly, and that compassion, when misunderstood, can appear dangerous before it reveals its depth. Maya did not act out of instinct alone. She acted out of memory, out of loss that had nowhere to go. She saw something small and vulnerable, and her body responded before language, before reason, before the rules humans depend on to feel in control. In that moment, she reminded everyone watching that motherhood is not a role assigned by species. It is a bond written into the nervous system, shaped by experience and carried forward even after heartbreak. The most powerful lesson of the story is not that animals can feel love. We already know that, even if we sometimes pretend we don't. The lesson is that love changes behavior, and when we fail to recognize that, we create danger where patience could have created safety. Harris did not save the puppy because he was stronger than Maya. He saved the puppy because he was willing to listen. He understood that force would only confirm Maya's deepest fear, that letting go meant loss. Instead of asserting control, he chose empathy. Instead of treating Maya as a problem to solve, He treated her as a being carrying pain. That choice changed everything. There is something profoundly uncomfortable about this realization. It asks us to reconsider how often we respond to fear with authority instead of understanding. How often we escalate situations because we mistake emotional distress for threat, and how often we fail to see grief until it becomes visible in ways that frighten us. This story also reminds us that healing is not immediate, and it is never clean. Maya did not get over her loss when the puppy was taken away. She sat with it. She rocked an empty memory. She carried the weight of what had been lost and what could not be kept. And only later, slowly, did she allow something new to exist alongside that grief. Not as a replacement, but as continuation. That is how real healing works. It does not erase the past, it reshapes it. For the people who stood behind the glass that day, something shifted. They came expecting entertainment and left carrying responsibility. Responsibility to see animals not as attractions, but as individuals shaped by history. Responsibility to recognize that silence can be communication, that stillness can be a cry for help, and that compassion is not weakness, it is intelligence applied with humility. Stories like this matter because they change how we see the world when the video ends and the screen goes dark. They remind us to slow down when something doesn't make sense, to ask why before reacting, to understand that sometimes the most dangerous moment is not anger, but love with nowhere to land. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us that connection does not require language. It requires presence. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, reflect, or see animals and even people a little differently, then its purpose has been fulfilled. And there are many more stories like this waiting to be told. Stories of loyalty, grief, courage, and unexpected compassion that cross every boundary we think separates us. If you believe these stories matter, subscribe to the channel and help support the work of sharing them. Your support gives us the motivation to keep listening, keep searching, and keep telling the kinds of stories that don't just entertain, but change us. Because the world needs more moments like this, quiet ones, honest ones, and stories that remind us who we are when we choose understanding over fear.